And Doug and I have been brothers now for 22, 23 years.
Okay. Let's see. I was 24.
Okay.
You were what, 9?
9 years old. Which that, people are like, well, you're brothers. What do you mean? You've only been brothers for 23 years or 22 years. How old are we? Gosh. I'm not, yeah, no, it's 23 years.
If we were to jump in the Doug and Will way back time machine.
The DeLorean.
Yeah, jump in the DeLorean. The first things that I think about is I was working at A.G. Edwards and Sons, which is an investment firm, and there was a guy by the name of Mike, and I really admired Mike. He was just cool. And Mike came by my office one day, and he said to me, Doug, you should be a big brother. And I said, what's that? and he went on to tell me about his experience with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Indianapolis. And that's where this idea for me was really created, is from my friend Mike, who I worked with. I give him a lot of credit for that. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, you know, Will and I have been brothers. We decided that we're going to be brothers. Mm-hmm. Early on, we made the decision not to introduce each other as, hey, this is my little brother Will, or this is my big brother Doug. No, this is my brother Will. This is my brother Doug. And one of the greatest joys I still get out of this is when we introduce each other and someone says, oh, yeah, I see the resemblance, instead of saying, oh, Will, is he your dad? You know, I mean, when they say, oh, I see the resemblance. And that happened to us just this week. You weren't there, but we were hanging out together, okay. and a friend of ours said, you know what, I see the resemblance.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so I love it when people say that. And here's what I think about that now, Will. When I think about that today, oh, I see the resemblance. What I think about is they see the joy in your heart. Mm-hmm. They see the joy in mine. Yeah. And they know that we have that in common. Mm-hmm. And so that's a great compliment. I mean, someone might be saying some type of like physical feature, but I think deep down what they're really saying is, hey, I know the joy of Will, and I can see that in you too. And so that's just a big compliment. But yeah, I've been excited to share this story with you on your podcast, and just even the name of your podcast, Legacy Minds. I'm big on words, and there's a difference between your brain and your mind. If you called this Legacy Brains, you know, it just doesn't have that same ring to it, number one. But my brain, like everybody else, like my fingers, you know, that's just part of me that's going to go dead someday. Mm-hmm. But my mind is different, and you can't put a mind underneath a microscope. And so the Legacy Minds, it's getting down to the important things in life. And family is one of those important things where we have chosen to be brothers, which is pretty wild. Do you ever get to choose your brother? Do you ever get to pick out your brother? But in a sense, we did.
Yeah, it's a choice to make. I mean, looking back on the family that I have around me now, really none of it's blood. You know, all of my family, my brothers are not blood.
Well, and you think back to when you were 9, you know, it'd be interesting what your mom would say. Like, why did she sign up for Big Brothers, Big Sisters? She had to have courage to do that. She saw something in you that inspired her to want to sign up. Yeah. And so none of this would have happened without Nancy. And so Nancy, cheers to you. Thank you.
Shout out to Nancy.
Yeah, shout out to Nancy. But it is really cool to be your brother. And it was really cool to be your brother when you were 9 because, man, when I look back on your childhood, which I can see, you lived, but I can see, like, you know, a lot of the same characteristics that you have today, you had back then. And it was an energy, it was a zip to do things big.
Yeah.
And you've been doing things big this year. You've been doing things big for several years. And that's just been a constant byproduct of who you are.
Yeah. It's been fun to be your brother too. See you go from A.G. Edwards to Gimbal Financial and having a family, and man, it's been cool. It's been so cool too. Like you've been able to see, I've seen you start your family.
That's right.
And you've seen me start my family.
Yeah.
It's been really cool.
You knew me before Caroline and I got married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a long time ago now.
Pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. So there you have it. I mean, the secret is out of the bag for all your podcast listeners.
We haven't shared that story with a ton of people either.
No, and I love coming into the gym, into Legacy, and I'm working out, and somebody will come up to me and they'll say, "Now you're Will's brother, right?" And I'm like, "You got it." And so now they know.
They know. They know the truth behind the story.
Yeah, and I hope people take courage with it, because volunteerism is a way to green light a ton of adventures.
Yeah.
And through volunteerism, you'll probably have to put yourself out there a little bit, but the return on investment is really strong. And I don't know if people, mainly because of technology, if they even volunteer like they did in the past, but if there are things out there that stir your heart or that you're easily stoked about, and there's a way to volunteer, there's a path for you to volunteer, then I say go for it. Even if that organization changes over time, which we've experienced with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But even if that changes, your reason for doing it is probably still there or even enhanced.
Yeah.
And so the idea of volunteerism, just giving yourself up for something bigger than who you could be on your own, man, I just encourage all your listeners to go for it.
Yeah. One thing that is so cool about the way you approach being a big brother too is we met some big brothers at what was that, a few years ago?
Yeah, we've gone to a few events that they've had to honor big brothers and little brothers.
Well, and it was cool how we got reintroduced to Big Brothers because why don't you tell that story? Because that.
Well, really, we had someone reach out. And this person, if we're talking about the same thing, this person was a representative of Big Brothers, and they wanted to know more of our story. Yeah. Because we had been together for so long, and so
but not necessarily in the program.
No,
we kind of. I mean, after a couple of years, we really weren't in the program per se anymore.
And you graduate out.
Yeah.
You graduate out at what, 18?
Yeah. So
we had a ceremony.
That ceremony at the end of high school.
Yeah.
And before that, we really hadn't done much with the organization up until that point.
They gave great structure as far as expectation.
Yeah.
And they gave great support from me as a big brother. I'm sure they gave great support to your mom.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. But when you graduated, it's kind of like, okay, high fives. Yeah. That was great. But Will and I just chose to keep it going. And we chose to keep it going, not even really thinking about it, because, again, the decision we made was, hey, you're my brother. It wasn't, hey, we know each other through the program. Right. It was more than a program. Yeah. It was a relationship. And when you define something with a relationship, there's like eternal consequences to it. You're joined. and so that's that was really the catalyst to our relationship being successful, was the choice of saying, hey, I'm with you, and you saying, hey, you're with me.
Yeah.
And so that's what's made this easy.
Yeah. So tell that story about how we how you kind of found out what Big Brothers was looking for in this, and then they were like, oh my gosh, just it worked out perfectly.
What? Help me. What are you talking about?
Well, with Cassidy.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of when she reached back out to me. Is there something specific you're looking for?
Well, the story itself, I think, is just it's in my opinion, that's divine planning, right? Like, how else would that have happened? You know?
Right.
So I just think the way that happened, because we had been out of the program for 10 years.
Yeah.
At that point, more, like officially graduated out of the program, right? And there's not many people that make it the distance.
No.
There's one other pair that has been together longer. And other than that, I don't know when the next one is.
Yeah, and people ask me about that all the time when I'm talking about our story from a big brothers, big sisters perspective. Like even my father-in-law, he was a big brother for a short time period. And I'm a huge believer in just the unquantifiable richness of life. And so even for my father-in-law, who was a big brother for just a short time period, you know, he's 78 years old and he'll still talk about his little brother.
Yeah.
And he'll say things like, I'm wondering how he's doing, or, you know, and so just the idea of someone caring, someone thinking of you, man, it goes a long way. And so if you're listening and you've been a big brother or a big sister, and say that relationship didn't work out quite as beautifully as ours will, that had huge purpose. That decision that you made, the decision that your little made at that time, it has huge benefits down the road because it's, you know, it's part of your story.
Yeah, I would agree. And, you know, I think what made it work so well between you and I is when you came into my life, you didn't come in to try to be, you know, a mentor or a father figure, or you just came into it as, I'm going to be your brother.
Yep.
I'm going to walk by your side through life, and we're going to do life together. And through that, you know, I don't know if I've told you this enough, but you have been a massive influence in my life and in the direction I went, you know. Some would say without you, I may be in jail, which is a possibility. But
that's not true.
But you know, that was I think what was so cool about it is you weren't telling me how to live life. You weren't trying.
I probably did a couple times.
You know, what's funny about that is I really don't think you ever did. It was because what I remember is, you know, through life and through going through situations and coming to you for some guidance and whatnot, it was asking me questions that led me to the answer, or that helped me find the answer on my own. And so it never once, maybe you did, but like it didn't feel like that.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
So that's what I think made that work so well, because, you know, me, I wanted a father figure. I wanted a brother around, because I didn't have that. But some kids, they may have a resentment towards a father figure. They may go, you know, I want to be with my daddy, but my dad's not around. And so I don't need a dad to replace them, you know, and I could see that playing into how, you know, some relationships don't work out very well. You know, but that's what I think worked so well for us, was you just came in to be exactly what it says, a big brother. Right?
In a sense, it's kind of like what we're doing life now. We're just doing life together.
Yeah.
And that's what we started doing when I was 24 and you were 9.
Yeah.
Is we just started doing life together.
Yeah.
Were there a couple times where I thought, man, I wonder what it's like to be a dad? I mean, what does Will need from me as a man? But those were probably just temptations. They sounded good, but what was really needed was just to walk alongside of each other and do life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's exactly what we were doing. And coming down to it now, you know, we there were times where we were more distant, right? You know, there were times where, and that would be an encouragement to people that maybe have been big brothers in the past that haven't talked to their little in 5-10 years.
Right.
Maybe reach back out, see where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when we did that, you know, when you started having kids, there was some distance. I was at the end of high school. I was doing my thing. You know, going to college, and you were having kids and doing the dad thing and building a career. And we didn't talk a ton, but we'd touch base probably once a month or so. Yep. And then when I started working for Tom James was when we started grabbing coffee every week. And that's now been a 4-year, 5-year thing.
One of the most exciting times in our relationship was when you started to really dig deep on who am I and what am I about. And you started to really launch your creative genius
is that what you want to call it?
Of sales, of working hard for people, wanting to give people a premium experience. And so when you started to approach life and unlock that worldview, I was attracted to it. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't believe Will is speaking my language. And he's doing it with a lot of energy. And he's doing it with a lot of seemingly like, hey, I'm taking risk to better our lives. And hey, I wanted to be a part of that. Who doesn't want to be a part of that? And so that made it easy because you and I started to really see things kind of man to man and walking through life, providing for a family, taking risk, daring,
Yeah.
doing things that only people dream about.
Right.
And so when we started to have those things in common, that just elevated the relationship to a whole new level.